The Cubs finally get that big hit. Cody Bellinger delivered a 3-run go-ahead homer in the 7th inning as the Cubs beat the Rays last night 4-3. They are back in the win column and looking for a series victory today. Crow-Armstrong continues to bring the energy. What does his role look like moving forward on this team? Plus, the Cubs made a few bullpen moves in the minor leagues. Could those be impacting the major leagues sometime soon? That and more on the Cubs baseball channel. Make sure to like and subscribe. Jump in the comment section. Let us know how you're feeling about this team and that interesting lineup they brought out there yesterday. And make sure to ring the bell as we give you an invitation to our show. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Cubs baseball channel. My name is Anthony Pasquale on Twitter at @Ant_Pasquale3. Thank you for spending some time with us chatting some Cubs baseball after a big win last night over the Tampa Bay Rays, a game the Cubs desperately needed and almost gave away once again. But let's get right into it. The Cubs beat the Rays 4-3. It was a close game. Again, another one-run game. The Cubs have now played 28 of those, and I believe their record is 13-15 in those one-run games. So they're a near 500. It's just they're playing far too many. They still haven't beat the brakes off a team in a very long time. It's something Mick and I discussed on the show just the other day. But the good thing is the Cubs are back in the win column. Nothing to write home about, but it's a game that they should have won, and they did win. And before we get too excited, you got to do it again and do it again and do it again. But they inch a little bit closer back to 500. They're now 33-35 on the season, but it wasn't always pretty. Hector Neris almost blew another save. The Cubs had a 4-2 lead going into the 9th. Hector Neris gave up a solo home run, and then there's some congestion on the bases before a fly out to Crow-Armstrong ended the game. It was 2nd and 3rd with 2 outs, so a single potentially could have won the game for the Rays, and the Cubs could have given up a 2nd straight walk-off loss. Instead, a fly ball to center. Crow-Armstrong camps under it. He grabs it, and the Cubs grab a 4-3 win. And a big reason why, the Cubs finally got the big hit. With 2 outs in the 7th inning, Cody Bellinger launched a go-ahead 3-run homer to take the score from 2-1 Rays to 4-2 Cubs. It was probably one of the biggest hits the Cubs have had in a game all season long, and it came at a time that they desperately needed it. And Cody Bellinger is a guy that we've talked about, that for a guy to be making $30 million and you counting on him to be playing like an all-star, he's been pretty good, but he hasn't been good enough. And the last couple of games, he's starting to get in the right direction. 3 straight 2-hit games. And the power came yesterday by virtue of that 3-run dinger to give the Cubs the lead that they eventually held on to finally and took the win with. Awesome game from Cody Bellinger, a much-needed swing of the bat from him, and hopefully this sparks a hot streak similar to the one he went on last season around this time of the year that propelled him into MVP conversations by the end of the season. Bellinger is a guy that you need to be able to count on in clutch situations, and nobody on this team has been hitting in the clutch as of late. Cody Bellinger brought it yesterday, and hopefully that could spark this offense to keep it going. Speaking of sparking the offense, Crow-Armstrong. He had a rough start to the game, went 0 for 3. Then in his 4th at-bat, he reached on an infield single and stole a base. Like, he's so impactful with his legs, both defensively covering a lot of ground, but also offensively. He turns every ground ball into a tough play. And a lot of times when that happens, you can reach on an error. Your speed can be the difference between a bang-bang play. You could be safe. Then all of a sudden, his speed can turn into a stolen base, and you're in scoring position. The Cubs have had a tough time converting those stolen bases into runs. But the fact of the matter is Crow-Armstrong is doing a really good job at his role, which is getting on base and causing havoc on the base paths. And that's something that should lead to the Cubs getting a few easy runs in the future, just because he's putting so much pressure on the defense, putting the defense to work. And hopefully that leads to some more Cubs runs soon. But you got to love what you've seen out of Crow-Armstrong. He was in center yesterday, which caused Cody Bellinger to start the game in right. Seiya Suzuki as the designated hitter, and Mike Tauchman on the bench. He came in later in the game, and the Cubs kind of shifted things around. But speaking of that, let's talk about it. The lineup looked way different, and we'll start with Nico Hoerner, out for almost a week after getting hit by a pitch on the hand. It was officially announced that he had some fractures in that hand, but the doctors believe that once the swelling went down, he's not at risk to play. He's able to play. So he kept on taking grounders and taking batting practice. Yesterday, he came in the game as a pinch runner and defensive replacement. Today, he got his first start. He went 1 for 4, nothing spectacular, but good to see him back in the lineup. That means Luis Vasquez is probably just going to head back to AAA. I know he was in Tampa, but if you could get Nico Hoerner healthy and back to a point where you're confident with him in the lineup, which it seems like the Cubs are because he was in the lineup yesterday, that's a big boost to your team, obviously defensively, but he's one of your best bat-to-ball guys in the lineup. So it was good to see him back. But he was in the 6th spot. The Cubs employed an unconventional lineup from what they've been doing lately, and it feels like Craig Counsell heard all of the complaining, all of the demanding better, demanding a shakeup. Well, he shook it up. Christopher Morel was the leadoff hitter, followed by Michael Busch. Probably two of the Cubs' better hitters this season, despite a lower average for Morel, but Busch has easily been one of the Cubs' most productive hitters, and Morel obviously has that power, but has been a lot better at commanding the strike zone than he has in years past. So Morel and Busch were 1 and 2. Then Bellinger was 3, who obviously hit that 3-run homer. Suzuki was in the 4-hole. He also crushed a home run. In the 5-hole was Ian Happ. 6 was Nico Hoerner. 7, Dansby Swanson. 8, Crow-Armstrong. And 9, Miguel Amaya. An interesting lineup. I'm not sure if it's what the Cubs will go with every game, but it definitely was a switch up and it resulted in a win. So maybe the Cubs go back to that for today and for the rest of, or at least for an extended period of time. Morel, not your typical leadoff guy, but he's had a better eye as of late. He's got some big time power, and stacking the lineup that way make sure that he gets a lot of at bats, which is something you obviously want, as he has game changing power. Not really a speed contact guy like the old prototypical leadoff hitter, but Christopher Morel has gotten a lot better at seeing pitches, extending at bats, and he went 1 for 4 yesterday with just 1 strikeout. We'll see if he's back up there. Michael Busch is another guy. He went 2 for 3 in that 2-hole, a guy that you want to get some more at bats to because he's starting to see the ball really well. It worked a little bit with Ian Happ up there. It's worked a little bit with Mike Tauchman. It's worked a little bit with Nico Hoerner. The Cubs are still looking to find that leadoff hitter, but that shakeup yesterday, everybody was kind of in a different spot, and it resulted in the Cubs win. The offense still hasn't fully broken out, but I feel like they're close, and that's a positive mindset to be in. On the other side of things, the bullpen yesterday was pretty good. Javier Assad went 4 2/3 innings, allowed 2 runs, and struck out 4. And then the bullpen before Hector Neris gave you a scary 10th save of the season with the winning run on second base. Both Tyson Miller and Drew Smyly pitched very well. Tyson Miller was officially awarded the win. He pitched 1 1/3 inning of shutout ball, gave up not even a hit, had 2 strikeouts. Drew Smyly also did that, 2 scoreless innings with 3 strikeouts. So it was good to see those guys have some productive outings out of the bullpen, and hopefully those guys are emerging in Craig Counsell's circle of confidence that he can turn to in high leverage situations. They both pitched well yesterday, but the other news was that the Cubs made a few minor league pitching signings, a few starters that they acquired to minor league deals that I assume will be sent to AAA or AA. Connor Schultz and Jackson Tetrault were those 2 guys. One of them used to be a national. But then the big move that was interesting, Jorge Lopez. Remember a few weeks ago, the Met pitcher that threw his glove into the stands and said in the postgame, "I'm frustrated because I play for the worst team in baseball." Well, the Mets obviously DFA'd him, and here the Cubs are 2 weeks later signing him to a minor league deal. It's an interesting move for the Cubs, who definitely need some bullpen help. And he's a guy who was an all-star only 2 years ago and has had a relatively strong season, a 3.76 ERA for the Mets so far this season before he was DFA'd. Not great, Definitely not terrible, better than what the Cubs have had recently. But back in 2022, he pitched in 67 games and had a 2.54 ERA season long and was named an all-star for the Baltimore Orioles. So he's a guy to keep an eye on. Maybe he can make a difference in this bullpen. I know we've talked about Carl Edwards Jr. He's another guy who's pitching well in the minor leagues, could potentially see his name show up on the 40-man roster and then in the big league soon. And Mick will talk about this later, but Ethan Roberts is another guy to keep an eye on, a pitcher who the Cubs loved in their bullpen a few years ago before an injury, rehabbing all the way back and pitching excellent in AAA as well. So those are a few names to keep an eye on as the Cubs continue to look for help in that bullpen that seems to be scary every time they get the ball. Cubs back in action today, looking to take the series against the Tampa Bay Rays. Another 5:50 Central start time. Justin Steele on the mound for the Chicago Cubs. 0-3 on the season. Still looking for that first win since August of last season. But he's pitched pretty well as of late, only given up one earned run or less in his last 3 starts. And his pitch count is back where it needs to be, so he can give you 6 or 7 full innings. So hopefully you get that out of him today. Against Taj Bradley, he's 1-4 with a 5.17 ERA. Only made 6 starts this season, but he has not been excellent for Tampa Bay. So this would be a great time for those bats to break out and secure a series win. But guys, jump in that comment section. Let us know who you think the Cubs should use as their leadoff man and kind of how you would stack that lineup, because it's something Craig Counsell is going to need to figure out soon as the season continues and the Cubs try to get back to 500 and above that as they make a playoff push this season. But guys, thanks so much for joining us on the Cubs Baseball channel. Again, my name is Anthony Pasquale. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, ring the bell, do all those great things, because the Cubs won yesterday, and hopefully today they can make it 2 in a row. Go Cubs.